Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I am Susan Guthrie, your host, and today I have to tell you, I'm excited for this guest. There are so many things about her that resonate with me, but let me just tell you a little bit about Amy Polacko. Amy is a divorce coach and journalist. She's in fact an former investigative journalist and TV reporter and marketing for PepsiCo. And I mean, you have a career path, Amy, that is more careers than some families have in their entire LinkedIn chain. In fact, here's one of the things I have to tell you I love about Amy. Her nickname when she was an investigative reporter was Pitbull Polacko. And she has now started and is a divorce coach, empowerment coach. She works with women, I think, entirely. And her wonderful name of her website is Freedom Warrior. My husband, I have to tell you, Amy, told me when he first met me, and I was a divorce attorney, most people back away making the sign of the cross, especially men when you're dating, don't want to date a divorce attorney. And he said, no, I think of you as a freedom fighter. So Freedom Warrior resonates with me as well. And I'm very excited to have you here today, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this. I love what you do and the millions of people you've helped at this point. As you know, we started doing a lot of this because our hearts have led us to this. But yes, I have that tough side. Pitbull, Polacko, watch out, don't cross me. No, I'm joking. I used to chase people down with a microphone, but that was a former life.
Well, it reminds me of the days I used to run up and down the hallways of courthouses with my high heels, chasing down opposing counsel or whatever. So we all had our Pitbull moments, but now we are, we're freedom fighters or freedom warriors. And that is very much who you are. And in fact, that has a lot to do with our topic today. You and I, when we were talking about the episode we wanted to build out and the messages and lessons we wanted to share, Save Yourself became the title of this episode. And it's save yourself in a lot of different ways, but mainly it's saving yourself from the toxic people, the toxic relationships, and unfortunately, something that I think is just really happening, or at least we're more aware of, that we're getting caught up in these toxic relationships that really tie us up and keep us down and are so hard to recover from. And I know one of your passions is to help people to avoid that situation entirely, or if they found themselves in a toxic relationship, to get out and to heal.
Absolutely. And I think, as you said, we're hearing more about that. I am sure we'll talk about the Tinder swindler, which I've written about as a journalist, but it's almost like a doctor treating a disease after the fact. We want to prevent it. And I, appreciate and I'm so grateful for all the books I read that helped me through a toxic relationship and narcissistic abuse, psychological abuse. But there are not enough out there. That's why I'm writing one, of course, that warn women ahead of time and warn young women. It's just simply not something we're taught, right, Susan? I mean, we're taught about our periods, we're taught about the birds and the bees, but nobody really, at least no one sat me down and said, look out for people like this. This is what they look like and the devastation they can cause. It doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars like the Tinder swindler scheme. They cause emotional, financial devastation that can, ruin people's lives. So anything I can do to prevent that, help women escape, help women see the signs earlier than maybe even I did, that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Well, and why you are the freedom warrior, right? And I think
Yes.
that's key. And you just mentioned the Tinder swindler. Netflix has been on a roll lately, right? They've had the Tinder swindler, Bad Vegan, Inventing Anna, all of these stories of these, I'll call them toxic personalities, narcissists. Who knows? We talk about all of the antisocial personality disorder, psychotic, this, that, or the other thing, but there is at least it appears, a growing awareness that these types of people are out there operating in a certain way. And I think what's significant about it, one, is that we're becoming more aware. And two, when you watch these shows, I think there's a pattern of behavior that we can make people aware of so that they see what's happening much more easily. Because as you said, right, we're not trained in avoiding people who are basically lying to us.
Absolutely. And I've written about the bad vegan for Ms. Magazine. I've written about Tinder swindler for NBC's national opinion page. And, I am passionate about the fact that we should not be blaming victims, right? We need to understand it's easy. And I know you shed light on domestic abuse on your podcast, which is fabulous. Sometimes people say, why didn't she just leave, right? It takes an average victim 7 times to leave. But it's easy to say, well, I wouldn't fall for a guy like that in the bad vegan, or I would never give somebody my money like these women did with the Tinder swindler. Well, you haven't been there, right? And they are so convincing. Some of these people, and they can be women too, like Inventing Anna, right? Yep. Let's be fair here. But they have spent their whole lives manipulating, since they were little kids. So you are like a babe in the woods. So, it's really easy to judge. And I've had people who've judged situations like that and then ended up in it a little later themselves and have done a mea culpa, kind of apology, right? So I think these new, very intelligent women fall for these men. These are not just down and out, women who are desperate for somebody. Absolutely not, right?
No, exactly. I mean, it's bringing to mind for me, another Netflix was Dirty John, right? Because she was a very successful woman. She was, had her own businesses. This was not a woman who had not lived life and had been, through relationships, et cetera, yet completely sucked in by a malignant narcissist. I'm fairly certain in that case. And it happens. And one of the things you point out is that we are, as women, still to this day, very much socialized along what I'm going to call the rom-com perception of life, right? We are given this concept and spoon-fed it through fairy tales and Sleeping Beauty and, all of these things, this Disney-esque life that Prince Charming is our ultimate goal. And that will bring us our happiness. And I think that plays into this toxic, the ability of these toxic people to suck women, especially in.
Absolutely. And I'd go so far to say that women have been gaslighted, right? I mean, that's one of the red flags I'm sure we'll get to, but definitely that's in our psyche. And I remember, so let's just recap. I'm a former investigative reporter, Pitbull Polacko, used to uncovering scams, corruption, crime, all these things. I fell for someone like this, right? So how did that happen? I remember thinking, after being in another, bad relationship, like, well, it's kind of like my time. Don't I deserve this finally? Like a lot of women feel that way. And you think, well, this seems, too good to be true. But, well, other people have this. So maybe I'm just second guessing it, or I'm just not accepting the joy of it. And I have anxiety over past things that have happened. So, and playing, whether you're conscious of it or not, are those rom-coms, is Cinderella, is the, well, don't I deserve this? Other people have this. And of course, we have social media that, plays into every holiday, anniversary, everything. It looks so wonderful from the outside. Of course, as an attorney and I as a divorce coach, right? It's not all it appears to be.
Right.
But you are kind of, you yearn for that. I wanted the Norman Rockwell family with the white picket fence, and I live in Connecticut, as you used to. You get the picture.
Oh yeah. And that's where I remember, waking up around 30 years of age. I had a good-looking boyfriend who was successful, who drove around in a fancy car, who took me on fabulous vacations, and thought, well, I'm 30. This must be who I was meant to marry. And never looked any further or deeper into it because it fit that picture of, I think you just described it so well, of, well, other people have this, and isn't this what I want? And isn't this what I'm supposed to have? And so maybe this is it. This is my opportunity. And then you wake up down the road and realize, one, no fairy tale really exists. And two, if you thought it was perfect, there's a reason why you thought it was perfect. Somebody has sold you or gaslighted. Can you explain gaslighting? Because I've never actually done an episode on gaslighting. So
right.
An example would be, or a description would be.
So it's based on an old black and white movie where the husband is telling the wife, is trying to drive her mad quite successfully in this old mansion, that the gas lights are not flickering. And she says, they're flickering. What's happening? He said, no, they're not. No, they're not. So that's what gaslighting is. You see something as reality. It's like black and white in some cases. And the other person is saying, no, no, no. And over time, what it's meant to do is destabilize you. It leads to you feeling like you're going crazy. You question your own judgment. And that's what these predators and manipulators want. That, you talked about the rom-com and the societal gaslighting. Well, these manipulators are often highly intelligent people, and they are playing on that too, right? They're bringing the flowers. So, gaslighting is one of the red flags. The other is love bombing. I think that's the first one, where they do everything Prince Charming does, right? And so you're like, well, what's wrong with that, right? I remember when I was being courted, I felt a little off at something that happened, an excessive purchase. And I remember talking to a girlfriend about it. She was like, you need to relax. You just haven't had this before, you deserve it. So then I had other people kind of saying that, so those go hand in hand. And then, once they hook you in that idealization phase, then they start the discard. Then, like the gaslighting starts, the manipulation. Often they get you to move in. They move very quickly. Another red flag, right? So they want to cement that relationship with you. Move in, get engaged, get married. Once they've got you, then they go to, narcissists, which many of these manipulators are, survive on supply, right? So once they've got you hooked as a supply and locked down, sometimes quite, literally,
yes.
Because I know you've talked about coercive control with Christine Cochilda on another 2 fantastic podcasts. Then they move on and do whatever they want, often with other people, right? And they start belittling you, and it's the whole cycle of abuse.
Right. Which escalates, but they do this in such a, incremental manner often. Sometimes they just dive right into it. But I think you've pointed out a few things there. First of all, I want to ask you a couple questions. So let's start with love bombing, because I just was interviewing Tina Swithin in an episode that will have come out. And because Tina just reissued her book, Divorcing a Narcissist, One Mom's Battle. And there's a scene or a section in there about the love bombing that her ex-husband did, where, it was just over the top. He sent her for a spa day the morning after they met. They'd never even been on a date. And he had set up an entire day at a spa for her. And then he took her to, it was over the top and crazy. And that's what I explain a little bit about. Everyone wants to put their best foot forward when you're starting a date, right? Everybody's going to perhaps spiff themselves up and behave in their best fashion. What is it about love bombing? How can you distinguish love bombing from someone just trying their best?
Right. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Tina's. We were just texting yesterday. I quoted her in many of my articles on some of these issues. I love her book. I think part of the healing process and also the awareness process is getting in touch with your intuition, right? Like the example I gave where, I was in a store and this person I was in a relationship with was buying an excessive amount of stuff for me. It felt wrong and I felt sick about it. I should have trusted that, right? And I started doubting my own. So that happens a lot, right? Like maybe Tina's like, well, no one's treated me like this before. Don't I deserve it? You have to, it's such a fine line, right? And I talk about in a piece I did on more women choosing to be single for NBC News, before New Year's, that I am an eternal optimist, right? And I think a lot of us fall for these types because we see the good in people, right? And we believe in the good in people, right? So we have to temper that with being a little suspicious, right?
Right.
Right. So, what I say to my clients is, you have to be your own investigative reporter. If you have to ask, why are they moving so fast? Why are they dropping $500 on the spa day when we just met, right? A lot of times, and probably these rom-coms play into it, right? The fast moving, whisk you off,
Beep you off your feet. Yes.
But it's the slow and steady that maybe grandma always told, or mother always told you about, or maybe didn't, but the nice guy who's going to put in the time, and he's, evaluating you as well. So if he's going slow, that says a lot about him. If they're going fast, you have to be suspicious and put the brakes on it, speak up, because it can happen so quickly that pretty soon you are 10 feet deep and you don't know what happened since the spa day.
Hence the bombing, right? It can be like an explosion in your life. And you made a good point there that I don't want to let get away, because often this starts even before you meet the person. With the online dating world that we are in today, very often the love bombing or this creation of this perfect, person starts in the profile stage, right? In their dating profile. In fact, you talked about in your article, which I'll have links to all the articles that we've mentioned, but the one that I'm referencing is on the Tinder swindler. And it talks about the fact that a vast majority of people admit to lying in their profile. And right off the bat, it's saying to me, you can't really even trust what you're reading there.
Absolutely, sadly. And I was so happy that NBC kept my headline, which was, it's not just Tinder, it's Bumble betrayers and match monsters too, right? And so, yes, 57% of people online dating admit to lying in a study a couple years ago, right? And then, look, do women lie too? Of course, but 67% of those are men. And they often lie about their marital status, and then the usual height, weight, all that stuff. And so, yes, you don't know. What you're seeing there is just, and some of these studies delved into the psychology of it. And they really got into the fact that people create an image of who they hope to be or want to be. Like some of these men say they're loyal people, and then you find out they're actually still married and cheating on their spouse, and so they know what to say to get you, they know what image to put out there. And that goes back to being your own investigative reporter. I think there are so many things you can do. Can I talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. That was going to be my next question, because you actually say that about someone that you, I think, saw a dating profile on, but when you did your investigative reporting, you got some surprises.
I was literally on the phone with this person I met online, and he let his last name slip, and I put it in, and it turned out he was like arrested for all this voyeurism, and it was mugshots galore. And I just got off the phone very quickly. But so, Google's your best friend, right? You don't need to have a, thousands
private eye
in a database, right?
Right.
And this, Susan, a great one I use all the time and tell my clients is, and as you know, I run a support group for single women, so we talk about dating and things, is the family court system website. Here in Connecticut, you can look it right up. You can look up that there is no divorce, or the divorce is ongoing, or so many things you can find out in there. Other, specific things about the case that would make that person undesirable for you to date. So there's those things. Look for, a LinkedIn profile. They should have some sort of digital footprint at this point. You can usually go on Facebook if they're there, or Instagram, and see, get to know a little bit about them. I mean, there was another person I was talking to, and went on to found him on Twitter, and he was posting a lot of misogynistic comments, and that was not okay with me, you know? So I think there's a lot you can do before getting swept away.
Right. Don't just believe the rosy picture. I think that online dating is kind of like social media in a way, right? Anybody can put anything on social media, tell you who they are, whether it's true or not. It's not like there's a fact checker out there. And, one thing I wanted to point out, you said that the gentleman you mentioned in the article, he had been arrested for harassment, assault, and revenge porn. I mean, that's actually a dangerous predator. And you were on the phone with them. So there was something about him that, in whatever he put in his profile, you got on the phone with this guy, and thank God you Googled it.
He looked like the guy next door, wholesome, like cooking, all these things. I can't tell you. I have said to my friends, and of course I can't publish this in an article, but I showed the online photo juxtaposed with the mugshot. It looked like two different people. Like it is the most shocking thing. And that goes to show you, people can represent themselves to be anything they want.
Yeah. Well, and you should Google and do your own due diligence. I believe that very strongly. Let me just point out, if they have no digital profile, if you cannot find information about them online, that is a red flag as well, because it probably means that they have a fake personality up, and that happens a lot.
Yes, there is one website there's Google reverse image, but there's also something called Tin Eye. You can put an image in there. And I did it once years ago. And this guy who claimed to be a veterinarian in New York City and all this stuff, something struck me odd about it. And I put the picture in. That photo was used for scams around the globe. So, if people have those model-esque fake type things, be careful.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who's been on the podcast, Daniel Harold, who is one of the founders of Divorced Over 40. And Daniel is a very good looking gentleman. He knows, I think that. And
I know him.
Yeah. So you know him, right? So, and all my listeners, it was a very clicked on episode. I told him his picture was clickbait, but his picture has been used by scammers. It's like every other day he's posting, please, this is not me. This is, people are putting up, but his profile picture gets used all the time. So, and he's not, 50 different men trying to meet. He actually has a lovely girlfriend and is not looking to meet anybody. And has a wonderful dating, program that he helps people with dating. So I think that that's a key point for everyone. Now, I've done a lot of episodes. One of my good friends is Bella Gandhi, who's America's favorite dating expert. And I want people to know that you can find love. I'm a person who found a second marriage that's fabulous. There's a lot of ways to do it, but we do live in a scary world, and we do live in a world where there are a lot of toxic people. And we've been talking about this from the dating perspective or the romantic relationship, but I know, and I can say personally, I have met a number of friends or colleagues throughout my life that would fall into these unhealthy relationship categories as well. So I do want to emphasize for people that these toxic people can permeate almost any area of your life.
Absolutely. And I think, going back to how we are not really taught about them, right?
Yeah.
I know, I have a 14-year-old son who is much more aware, probably thanks to what I do, than I ever was, right? In noticing people and trusting his intuition. But I think what happens for a lot of people is when you educate yourself about this, you read about it, you learn how they operate. In the romantic world, it's almost like taking those rose-colored glasses off, and you start to see this in maybe friendships with women or situations at work, colleagues, and it's really incumbent upon us to protect ourselves, right? So it goes back to boundaries, setting those boundaries to protect yourself. I think we as women are, like I said, gaslighted a lot that, we should be accommodating. We should, we sacrifice, we cooperate, right? And we can get labeled the bitch if we, stand up for ourselves. But the reality is, if you don't, in all of these situations, the consequences are huge. And obviously, when it's a romantic partner, you're tying your finances, your children to them. Like Tina Swithin's story of the custody. It's it affects your entire life, right? So, I think people should look at their entire life and all of the relationships in it with that lens.
Yeah, I think it's important. And I think we, have to look at a world where, unfortunately, I don't know if there are just more toxic people out there, or if just with the electronic world that we find ourselves in, it's easier for people to suck in and put others, and to put up these false personas or these fake personalities out there, and sort of dupe us with because, face it, with that guy that you saw that turned out to be the revenge porn guy and all, if he hadn't been arrested in the past, he might have looked still like a relative. I mean, you happen to find, because he was held accountable at some point. A lot of times these people are good at what they do and they don't get held accountable.
Absolutely. And I was later on another dating site at one point, Hinge, and he popped up there, and I said, no, oh my gosh. Right.
You're following me. So, what do you do to, I guess there's a twofold question here. How do you, if you've realized that you are entwined with a toxic person, how do you escape, and how do you get beyond it? Because I know those are two huge questions. So let's just talk about how you get out of that relationship.
Right. I think the first thing is to educate yourself on who you are dealing with, right? Is that a lot of times, and again, they do intermittent abuse and then love bombing again, right? So you start to doubt yourself. There's that whole period of cognitive dissonance where you don't know what is right or wrong, that some of their actions are very loving and others are so manipulative. They're always pathological liars. And so realizing what you're dealing with is huge. I remember talking to an attorney who, when I was telling her the story, she said, you need to go to the women's center, to the support group, right? And going there changed everything for me. It's here in Connecticut. I spoke years later, telling my victim story of emotional abuse, that it's not always a black eye. And I'm someone that you'd look at my resume and say, well, she wasn't supposed to be there, right?
No, right.
Right. So it can happen to anyone. So surrounding yourself with people like that and reading. I remember at one point, one of my family members saying, like, well, why are you wasting all your time reading these books about narcissists? And it's part of the healing process, because, listening to your podcast or watching a YouTube video from someone who's been through it or is an expert on this, you realize you're not alone, and it gives you that strength to see it for what it is. My motto with all of my coaching clients, because I have many who are stuck in these marriages and have not gone forward with divorce yet. They're getting their ducks in a row. Then I have some involved in divorce, and then some after, because it does not end. And Tina Swithin talks all about it, the post-separation abuse, right?
Yes.
So you don't want to sign up for this nightmare roller coaster ride, ladies. Educate yourself and get out as early as you can. So, that's a huge part of it, is educating yourself, knowing what to do. And I tell all my clients, stay a step ahead of them. You can't let them know. You can't say, hey, you're a narcissist. It's just not going to work.
No.
And I think a lot of us women are not trained that way, Susan. It's almost like you got to put your battle armor on. You are at war, whether you like it or not. That war showed up at your doorstep, and you've got to, buck up and handle it. And you have the power to do it, because otherwise they they can destroy you. And as you know, they are very manipulative in the legal and financial situation, hiding money, convincing you to do mediation, or we can just, I mean, mediation is great, you know what I'm saying? But we could, go meet at a restaurant and just iron this out ourselves.
Sure. I have an attorney. They'll help you too. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the first step is you need a team. You need a team of people working with you. Obviously I connect them with a financial person and one CDFA who I use, she has like a ghost file. Like you can text her or send her documents and then just, destroy any evidence that you copied them, and she will hold them for you in an emergency folder, even if you're not ready to go forward with a divorce. Yeah.
Right. Well, because safety is paramount here. You do need to maintain your safety. And one of the things that, Tina mentioned a lot in the book, and that I hear from a lot of people who are in these toxic relationships, is one, they knew in their gut for a very long time that this was an unhealthy relationship. But part of it, the inertia, I think, is every single one of them uses the word just total exhaustion, that they are in the midst of this whirlwind. I call these toxic people emotional terrorists. Yes. Because you are constantly, as you just said, the cycle is, tear you down, love bomb you as you start to pull away, tear you down once you come back, love bomb you to get you back. And it is exhausting. It is, that's part of that cycle, is it puts you in that place where fighting or fleeing is hard to do because you are just sucked into the earth. I mean, it's weighs you down like you cannot believe.
Absolutely. And then you add on top of that, a lot of times they're controlling the money. Sure. Then you have children to worry about, right? So, one of the reasons I am a freedom warrior is, it's freedom from this situation, obviously, freedom to live life on your own terms, to have your own peace and to have your own stream of income and finances, right? Because a lot of times women give up their, careers to stay home with the children. I actually wrote about this for NBC on the Depp and Heard case about postnuptials, like if you stay home with the kids, you should have a postnuptial that compensates you for what you have given up monetarily. I mean, we all hope, and again, that's where the brainwashing, gaslighting comes in, is we all, hope it's this Cinderella marriage story where, you have 50 grandkids and you grow old together and it's all these wonderful things, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. They want you to think that so you don't push for that, right? But you don't know. I mean, almost half of marriages end in divorce, right? So you've really got to protect yourself. And to your point, yes, they wear you down. That's part of the plan.
Right. They exhaust you before you can even get up to fight and to leave. And a couple of things you just said there. First of all, the post-nup, if you give up your career to stay home with children, I'm doing an episode on that because so many women don't even know that that's an option. And it can have such dire financial consequences. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I'm not passing any judgment on making a choice to be a stay-at-home parent, but you need to protect yourself, and a post-nup's a wonderful way to do that. So I love that you mentioned that. The other thing that I think is important for us to realize, going back to maybe how we are socialized, is we are also socialized to think, as women, to think that we can nurture and love someone into changing. Right. That's such an old, long-standing myth that, the love of a good man will change him and that sort of thing. And I've run into that a lot with my clients who are in these toxic relationships, that they, you said you can't just go and sit down with them and say, so you're a narcissist, here's what we need to do. Let's fix you and everything's going to be fine. That's not going to work in these relationships. We are not going to fix them.
Absolutely. And with my coaching clients, I can never tell them what to do, but I often ask, do you think he's going to change? Right? Where do you want your life to be a year from now? And a lot of times, and look, I live in Fairfield County, Connecticut, north of New York City. We have a lot of wealthy family situations, right? And some of these people are living a very comfortable life, but I always hold my hands up like a scale. Like I can't decide where the scale tips, but at a certain point, all of the homes and the cars in some situations and vacations cannot outweigh the abuse. And often, clients will say to me, someone took a picture of me and I saw it and like my eyes are like hollowed out underneath. I don't even look like myself. I'm like, who is this person? And it's so heartbreaking to see them, dying inside almost. It can be an emotional death. And I remember thinking that for me, that I'd rather, be in a shack with my son somewhere and have peace. Right. And to your point, I was lucky that a therapist and counselor, broke with protocol and said to me privately, like, this isn't going to change. Like, you should get out of this relationship. There is no change, because I think for so many of us, like you said, we're the workhorse, we're the nurturer, like we can fix this. And if they're throwing the breadcrumbs to keep you thinking that, they'll go to great lengths to tell you they're going to change.
Oh, right. Every single time.
It's like a campaign. It is a love bombing campaign to get you back. And they know your weak points. I had a client recently who was telling me her story and, talk about thinking about intuition. When she was dating this person, she said, now that I look back, he was studying me. And I think that too. I thought mine was a great listener. Oh, wow. He really is interested in, they are storing information about you to find your Achilles heel. Is it your children? Is it something else? Right. What have you always wanted in your life? They're going to deliver it.
Yeah. Actually, Tina mentioned her ex-husband when he wanted to drag her down, he would mention that she didn't have a college degree. That was like, because it was a soft point for her. Again, no judgments here, but that for her was something she felt, hadn't felt badly about, but he made her feel badly about it. And whenever he wanted to then push her buttons, make her feel bad, he would hone in on that, her troubled, childhood, things like that. So you're 100% right. They will dive into, you become their project. And once they know you well, they then will use everything that they know, as a way to control you, to control your behaviors and to keep you low. So we were running close to end of time, but I want to leave on a positive note. Give me one.
Yes, I'm not telling everybody to lock themselves in their houses and I'm a hopeless romantic, and I can't get that out of my DNA either. And I say to women all the time, and I'm writing in my book, which is Don't Fall for a Con, how to protect yourself from narcissists and sociopaths before they ruin your life, but that we should not change who we are, right? We are loving and kind and all these great things. That's who we are. We shouldn't stop being that person, but we just got to add on the investigative reporter role a little bit. Get in touch with your intuition. Try it out in friendships first. If you're not ready, kind of like baby steps, and then in the romantic relationships. But when you have a feeling about something, I remember hearing Oprah say once, like, when you have a thought about something, it's the universe whispering to you, right?
Yeah.
So listen, take it from me, take it from so many women who have been through these hellish situations. And I think if you do that, you should feel empowered. You should feel confident getting out there. And look, like you said, Susan, I have tons of friends who have met their partner online, who are in happy marriages. It's just, it's a sorting game, it is. I think we all want it to be Cinderella right away. But it might be, what's the other one? Like 50 First Dates. It's just going to be, might be like, or more.
I think that's actually, it's one of those things. I've watched recently a few friends who have gone through divorce recently. And, there is that aspect of us as humans who want to feel connected to someone again. We want to feel love. We want to feel that we have a partner in life, but you want to also make sure when you get into that new relationship, it's the right relationship. And so all that love bombing, by the way, feels great in some ways in the moment, right? Those flowers and the extravagant gifts. And as you said, people have it, but use your intuition, watch for those red flags. And I like the be your own pit bull reporter. Since Amy can't do it for all of you, be your own pit bull reporter. Absolutely. And do your due diligence.
Yeah, and love bomb yourself. Go to the spa yourself. Go with your girlfriends. It shouldn't. Sometimes we're conditioned that I can only experience this with a romantic partner. I've taken my son places. That are like, there's other couples around. And we're in the hot tub. I laugh about it. I mean, we had a great time. Like, so don't be so desperate that you're going to take anybody. And it is the work and love for yourself where you deserve the best. You deserve somebody who loves you and appreciates you and takes it slow, treats you with respect. And if they lie once, they're going to lie again, right? So,
right.
You can be the pit bull no matter what your last name is. You can be the pit bull too.
Well, I have to tell you, I love the quotes I just wrote down. Love bomb yourself, everyone. Let's leave it on that point. If you need some love bombing in your life, love bomb yourself and learn to avoid the toxic people in your life. Amy, this has been super helpful, but I know there's so much more out there. In fact, on your website, I think you have a wonderful ebook that people can get. So you tell people about your website and then how to get the ebook.
Yes. So it's freedomwarrior.info. And you will, once you start navigating on there, it'll pop up. It's 5 ways to take control of your life. And I'm also do free 30-minute coaching consultations with anyone. So just, pop on my calendar and book a time. You can reach me also at Amy Polacko, AMYPOLACKO @gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much, Susan.
Well, I enjoyed it. And I know my listeners, this is going to resonate. It's wonderful to hear the other people's stories and hear a little bit about what's gone on and what you've seen for your other clients, because that's when people go, oh, that's when they make the connection. So for anyone who wants to follow up, I will have all of Amy's information in the show notes. Reach out to her. Also follow her on Instagram. I do. And she has great posts there. It's Freedom Warrior Tribe, right?
Yes. Freedom Warrior Tribe. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amy.